enforcement agencies follow those policies?
Yeah, local law enforcement agencies and law enforcement agencies in general are subjected to audits. Audits then can be done by the Federal Bureau of Investigation, or they can be initiated by the Wisconsin Department of Justice. I know we have a audit scheduled for next month to ensure compliance with the security policy, and that one's going to be conducted by the FBI.
Certainly. And is part of the CJIS policy outlining those formal audits?
Yes.
Commissioners, I would draw your attention to page 144 of the CJIS policy, which is the PDF page is 166. Ms. Moore, could you pull that up for me, please? So PDF page 166, document page 144, policy 511, formal audits. Thank you, Ms. Moore. Assistant Chief Sarno, I draw your attention to section 511.1.1, perennial compliance audits by the FBI CJIS division. Is this the policy that you were referring to with the formalized audits?
Yes.
And they occur once every 3 years at a minimum?
Yeah, at a minimum. I believe for us, it's been my experience that they usually come in once a year for the Milwaukee Police Department.
Sure. And you don't have anything to do with, well, I'll ask you, do you have anything to do with any audits that are done with the Office of the City Attorney?
No.
Go ahead, please.
Outside of ensuring that all non-department sponsorship forms, which may include the city attorney's office, are in compliance with the security policy, which again is subject to FBI audit.
Sure. So to be clear, if the Office of the City Attorney received a request from a CJIS audit, you wouldn't have access to that or records of that. That's not given to you, that's given to the department.
Correct. Yeah.
And before we go into any further that, how many departments in the city have access to criminal justice information?
For the city of Milwaukee?
Yes.
I believe it's just the Milwaukee Police Department.
Does the city attorney have access to specific CGI information?
Yes.
Yes,
they would.
Does the Department of Emergency Communications also have access to criminal justice information?
Yes.
Does the office or does the municipal court have access to criminal justice information?
Yes, they do. And I must have misunderstood your question, but because they all occupy space within the Milwaukee Police Department and are doing work in conjunction with law enforcement, we're the ones that are ultimately responsible to ensure compliance with the security policy. So we're the ones that would be held accountable if there was some type of violation, from one of those other entities, which is why we follow the security policy and do the required checks that are mandated by the policy.
Thank you. And then just out of what are the consequences what are the potential consequences if the audit reveals a misappropriation of CGI?
Yeah, if there's a misappropriation, it can be any number of, penalties or sanctions. It could be removal of access to, a specific, law enforcement database if there's some kind of misuse there. It could be, limited to one, or it could be limited to several, depending on what it is. It could be a verbal warning. It could be a written warning if you're found to be in violation. I'm only aware that we received a written warning or a reprimand in 2017 for a violation of, I believe it was the time system that was identified as a result of the audit back in 2017.
And was that issue rectified or taken care of?
Yes, it was taken care of.
And so no violations from 2017 to present?
Not that I'm aware of.
Okay. Are there any potential criminal charges if an individual or if the city is in violation of the policy?
There could be, but I'm not aware of, again, of any of that. That would be, probably on the higher end of severity, and I'm not aware of that ever happening, at least not to the Milwaukee Police Department.
Sure. And I believe I just want to go back and touch on this real quick. You indicated that that MPD could have denial of access to systems as a potential ramification.
That could be, a potential penalty or sanction, depending again on the severity of the infraction.
And how would that impact the work of the Milwaukee Police Department?
Well, not having access to crucial databases, to get the necessary criminal information that we need to do our jobs effectively would be a detriment to would be a detriment, excuse me, to public safety if we weren't able to access those systems.
No further questions at this time.
Yeah. Chief Sarno, you're also subject to cross-examination by the appellant's attorney. And so I'm going to now look to Attorney Hitchcock Cross for cross-examination.
I don't intend this to be long, but if anybody needs a break, I mentioned that. Okay.
Okay.
ACA Sarno, can you hear me?
I can, sir.
Okay, my name is Ben Hitchcock Cross. Pleasure to meet you. When did you first learn of Antoine Young?
I first learned of Antoine Young in, again, the fall of last year.
Okay, when the city attorney brought him to your attention, is that right?
Yes,
About when was that?
I believe it was in October.
Okay, October. Okay, for what it's worth, I appreciate that. And who was in that meeting that you had in October?
I was, so Mary Shanning was, and then Nick Desiato, who at that time was the mayor chief of staff, but his name is reflected on the original sponsorship form that we've already seen, as he was the Milwaukee Police Department's chief of staff at that time.
I understand. And what was Mr. Desiato's role in that meeting?
I don't recall. I think he might have been, and that would be a question, I guess, more for him, whether he was brought in because he was the MPD's chief of staff at the time. I don't remember. My conversation was more with Mary Shanning and Nick Desiato connecting her with me.
Got it. What did Miss Shannon's role? What was her role in the meeting, Miss Shanning?
She just wanted to get a clear picture of what CGIS was and the process and how it works and many of the things I already spoke to.
Okay. Are you the security officer?
I am not.
Oh. Okay. And you know what the security officer is, right?
Yes,
Okay.
we have.
And
Yeah.
when we're talking about CGIS is, and the related programs that we're talking about, this is essentially access to federal database. Do I understand that right?
It's not, it doesn't just include federal databases. It includes any law enforcement database that contains elements of criminal investigations or criminal justice information.
Thank you for that clarification. Now, does is there an agreement between the FBI, or how is this authority granted to the FBI to audit the city of Milwaukee?
I believe it's just, I don't know if it's some kind of actual formal MOU or an agreement. It's just, it just comes down to that this is the security policy. We have access as the largest law enforcement agency in the state, and this is what we have to abide by in order to have access and maintain access with the databases I'm speaking about.
But you don't even know if there's a contract. Is that fair?
That's fair.
I'm going to object. The policy speaks for itself.
Okay. And do you know if there's any, how do you know that this policy governs the city of Milwaukee in any way?
It governs it governs all law enforcement agencies, which includes the Milwaukee Police Department,
Okay, how do you know that?
because I believe it's outlined in the policy itself.
Okay, and so, and just to be clear, you don't think there's any kind of agreement, or at least you're not aware of there being any kind of agreement between the city of Milwaukee and the FBI governing this policy, fair?
Not a formal, like, written agreement that's signed, no.
Okay. And it's also fair to say that you've never seen one, right?
No,
Okay,
it's fair to say that, yes.
all right. And how do you know who the security officer is?
Well, I oversee IT, so our system security administrator works in our IT division.
How do you know that?
How do I know that? Because he
And
works,
I understand. Excuse me, I'm going to back you up a second here. Are you aware of whether or not the city of Milwaukee has a security officer that governs the CGIS program access?
yes,
How are you aware of that?
because I oversee the IT division as, which has our security systems administrator who's responsible for that.
Okay. And so you know that you don't have any authority then to determine who gets access to the CGIS information, don't you?
You kind of broke up there, sir. Could you repeat that?
I'd love to. So you know that you don't have any authority to make a determination whether or not an individual is granted access to CGIS information under the control of the city of Milwaukee, right?
Under the control of the Milwaukee Police Department, I do, because it's identified that way on the sponsorship form.
Okay, well, you're not the security officer, right?
No, I'm not the
SO,
security officer.
Okay, and so my reading of the policy says that it's the SO that makes the determination. And you read that with us, right? When you went over the section about felonies and misdemeanors, right?
Correct.
Right, so you knew from at that time that it was not you who made that determination, right?
I make the determination for access to the Milwaukee Police Department, though, as designated by the non-department personnel sponsorship form.
Okay, but so we're clear that this, well, let's ask it another way. Do you believe the Milwaukee Milwaukee Police Department follows this CGIS policy?
Yes, I do.
Okay. And you'll agree with me that this policy requires the decision on whether or not a misdemeanor, someone with a misdemeanor record can be granted access to CGIS. That happens by the SL, correct?
It allows for, the policy does allow for a variance, yes.
That's not my question, sir. Can you answer my question?
Policy allows for a variance, and that is, that has to come from the Assistant Chief of the Administration Bureau, and that would be me now.
Okay. So let's read the policy again. All right, all requests, are you the CSO?
I am not.
For the sake of clarity, can you please direct us to the page of the exhibit that you're referring to?
Sure, I'll be happy to do that. Okay, and I appreciate that. So, sir, I'm going to direct you to policy 5.1 or 2.1, and that's on the bottom of page 146, as indicated on the page number, and my page, that's 168. So if you'll, sir, if you'll look to 5.12.1 and then sub 3 there, or sub 2, I apologize, sub 2. And I'll just read that out for your benefit. All requests for access shall be made as specified by the CSO. The CSO or their designee is authorized to approve access to CGI. Do you see that there, sir?
I do see that, yes.
Okay, so you'll now agree with me that you don't have the authority to approve access to CGI, correct?
No, I would disagree with you on that.
Okay. would you agree with me that the MPD is in violation of the policy?
I do not agree with you on that.
Okay,
Because if we were in violation of the policy, as you say we are, that would have been identified in a previous audit. And that has not been identified. So no, I don't agree with you.
okay. So the only way we would know if there's a violation of the policy is if the FBI tells us that there's a violation of the policy after an audit. Fair?
That's fair.
Okay, now I got it. So to be fair, in other words, if the city attorney's office says there's a violation of the policy, that doesn't count. True?
Could you repeat that?
I'd love to repeat that. If the city attorney's office says that there's a violation of the policy, that doesn't matter, right?
Well, the city attorney's office wouldn't say that. That has to come from us.
Oh, okay.
We're the ones
And-
that are the hosts. We're the ones that are the sponsors. So we would tell them if someone is not eligible.
I got it. And Mary Shanning in this meeting, did she tell you how long Mr. Young had been working in this role?
I don't recall.
Okay. Do you know how long Mr. Young had been working in this role?
I did not.
Okay. But you were aware that he was working at the municipal court or something else?
No, I wasn't aware he was working.
Oh, okay. But now, correct me if I'm wrong, but it's your job to supervise these locations, correct?
Yes,
Okay. And it's your job to make sure that people don't have unauthorized access, to the correct?
correct.
Okay. But you're telling these commissioners that at no time before you met with Mary Shanning, were you aware that my client had access to municipal court? Is that fair?
I'm going
I
to
hadn't-
object this on the testimony.
You said municipal court?
Right.
That's not involved here.
Thank you.
The PAB, I can amend my question to, at no time did you understand that my client had access to the PAB?
I'm going to object again. That was not the testimony. It was unescorted access.
I'm not going to amend that question. She wants to.
Well, he can testify.
He can answer the
Answer the
question.
question.
Preferably without assistance. Sir, did you hear the question?
No, I did not. Can you repeat it?
Sure. You were never aware that my client had access to the police administration building. Is that fair?
That's fair. I didn't know who he was until I had that discussion, that meeting with Mary Shanning until October of last year.
Okay. So if he was working in that office since 2022, the incumbent in your position would have been the person responsible for overseeing that, correct?
Yes, somebody in the somebody from a prior administration, yes, who had been in this position would have been aware of that if we were made aware that this person was working here.
Sure. But, and to be clear, it's your agency that has the agreement with, that's ultimately responsible to the FBI. Isn't that true, sir?
Correct.
Okay. And again, it's your agency that would have been ultimately responsible for making that determination. Isn't that true, sir?
Yes.
Okay. And so if you'll agree with me, or if you'll accept that my client worked in the police administration building from 2002 until at least you met with Ms. Shanning in the October of 2024, that what can we say, that somebody at the Milwaukee Police Department should have been aware of that. Isn't that true?
True.
Okay. Do you have any information if the city of Milwaukee, if the CSO was or was not aware of that fact?
I do not have any information.
Okay. Now, what did Ms. Shanning tell you in this October meeting?
I only recall she just wanted some insight as to CJIS process, the criteria, and then again, I just went over this particular sponsorship form and reviewed it. That was the extent of it.
Okay. Now, again, as you agreed with me already that you were not authorized to determine whether or not somebody should have access to this system, right?
I'm going to object,
No,
Mr. Hurkacz.
I disagreed with you on that.
Okay,
He's asked, you asked and he answered it, and let's move along.
then maybe I'm misunderstanding. You're saying that you're not the CSO. Are you saying, sir, that you have power over the CSO?
You're, Mr. Attorney Hitchcock Cross, you're arguing with the witness. He oversees these two people, and he said he also has authority because he's the head of the division.
Okay, and maybe I didn't understand based on that answer, and I was trying to clarify there. So maybe that's just my misunderstanding. But so I guess if I'm asked, let me, I guess, then be clear. Because it seems like everybody else is more clear than me. So is it the case, sir, that you are the supervisor of the CSO?
No, I'm this, you can call it a CSO because that's what it's called in this policy. I
Sure.
don't call myself a quote CSO, but if that's what it says in this policy, but ultimately all these sponsorship forms for non-department personnel come through the Administration Bureau, and that's signed off by the Administration Bureau's Assistant Chief on page 2.
Okay. So I'm going to direct you then to page 2 of this document. It's page 18 in the PDF. And the section I'm going to look at is 3.2.2 CGIS Systems Officer. You see that section, sir?
Yes.
And I read there, the CSO is an individual located within the CSA responsible for the administration of the CGIS network for the CSA. And you're clear with me that the CSA in this situation is the Milwaukee Police Department, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And what's the CGIS network that is talking about in this sentence here that we're discussing here today?
I'm going to object, answered,
I thought he answered that in the beginning.
asked and answered.
Okay. And so you see here at the beginning, it says the CSO is an individual. You see that there?
I do see that there.
Okay, please identify for us who the CSO is working at the Milwaukee Police Department.
I have the overall authority to move these sponsorships forward through the Milwaukee Police Department. If you're talking about an individual located here who the CGIS systems officer is, the systems security administrator, so we probably refer to it as a different title, is the one ultimately responsible for the overall security and integrity of our data systems for the Milwaukee Police Department.
Okay, but the Milwaukee Police Department also has a LASSO too, right?
A what?
A LASSO, a local agency security officer, doesn't it?
Yes.
Who is that person?
I'm going to object, it's outside the scope.
Where are you going with this?
I'm trying to understand who the individuals who have the authority to make these decisions
Well, I
are.
think
Asked and
if I
answered.
go to the document here, those are working titles as described by the federal government. And that could be one or more people with specific city titles. I think that's what may be confusing the situation. I mean, he's not the security officer per se, but he is the boss of the person who is for MP for the Milwaukee Police Department. So there's a person that oversees the data system, and that guy reports to this assistant chief.
Sure, but in an example, sir, just for example, if the city attorney had the authority to do something, the mayor doesn't automatically also have that authority. And just because somebody is higher up in a hierarchy than somebody else doesn't mean that they obtain that they automatically have all the job responsibilities of it and everything else. And what we're trying to find out is under this contract here whether or not who has the actual authority.
Well,
Because it's
that's
very
very-
clear under this contract that that the CSO has the authority to make the determination that Ms. Headley walked this gentleman through that he supposedly made. So what I'm trying to find out is, did he have the authority to make that decision, or is it assigned to somebody else? Because under the agreement, it's not loosey-goosey. Under the agreement, it's the CSO.
Charge of the security division in the Department of Administration in the police department. And if you look at the record, we have an exhibit where one of his predecessors, she signed off back in 22, and now he at this meeting verbally confirmed it in 2024. That as it relates to Mr. Young, the appellant.
Sure. In the record, we also have a document signed by Celia Jackson purporting to terminate my client, and Celia Jackson didn't have the authority to terminate my client.
Well,
that's
that
what
may be true, and
Right.
that may be the reason why it was rescinded back in 2022. I don't know the facts of that case.
But we need to listen to the facts in this case about whether or not there's a person called the CSO and how that's not him. So when he says it's not him, but he has the authority over somebody, that's not the same thing,
The
sir.
testimony seems to confirm that it is him. And that he and his predecessor both reached the same conclusion, that based on the appellant's record, they would not approve him, and that they're the agency in charge of making the approvals. Whether Ms. Jackson, I don't believe she's with the police department, whether she got involved or not incorrectly, perhaps, that's history. But right now, he's simply confirming what the person in 2022 did by saying, from the police department's point of view, we're in charge of the security of the data systems altogether, that Mr. Young should not have access to them.
But that's not what this policy says. This policy doesn't say that the city of Milwaukee gets to have a department and anybody that's in the department gets to make the decision. The policy says that the CSO is the one, or their designee is the one who gets to do it. So when I've asked this person, who is the CSO, and they haven't been able to identify who a specific person is, then we don't have the answer to that question.
Well, from your point of view.
Commissioner, may I speak?
Yes,
I apologize for the confusion, with some of these titles that are, and acronyms being thrown your way and then my way. To answer your question, Counselor, the CJIS officer, this position, we refer to them as our CJIS coordinator, is an individual that works out of our compliance management section. So when these sponsorship forms come to me from all different areas of the department, I move them forward in the process. They go to the CJIS coordinator, who ensures the background checks and all the other requisites for the CJIS security policy are adhered to. If there's any type of flag that comes up in the system, like we had with Mr. Young, the background process, they notify the assistant chief, which in this case was my predecessor. If it happened today, it would be me, and let us know about these flags. And then that's when the sponsorship form would be approved or denied.
that's it.
Okay. So, and if I understood that correctly, you pre-screen the applications, the CSO does the background checks, and then you make the ultimate decision. Is that right?
If there is a flag, then yes. They will advise me, they would advise the assistant chief of some type of flag. And typically that happens in the background process as a result of the criteria that I've already spoken to regarding the personal security policy outlined in Section 5.
I understand. And so when you reviewed Mr. Young's record, did you have his permission to review his record at that time?
You mean back when I looked at it in October?
That's right.
I didn't need his permission to look at the record.
Okay, and why do you believe that?
Because I am a certified law enforcement officer from the state of Wisconsin who has access to these databases and is allowed by CJIS to look at these things.
Okay. I understand. So was this, what you were doing in October, was this in effect a second review of the 2002 application?
They asked me to review it because of my involvement now in this process, and alluded to that I may be called as a witness then to speak at this hearing, which I'm doing today.
In October, they alluded that you would be possibly called to present at this hearing today. Is that fair?
As a subject matter expert, yes.
Got it. Okay. So based on that comment, did you believe that they were trying to remove Mr. Young from the Milwaukee civil service at that time?
Again, I was unaware of what his employment status was at that time. Like I said, I had no knowledge of him. I didn't know who he was. And as I've already testified to, I didn't sign off on this form back in 2022, and October was the first time I saw it.
So, and to be clear, you've been in this position since January of 2024, right?
As the Assistant Chief of the Administration Bureau, yes.
Right, and the person who's able to make this determination, right?
Yes.
Okay, and the person who's responsible for the CGIS integrity, right?
Yes.
Okay, and so from January of 24 till October of 24, you never heard anything about Mr. Young. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
Okay, so if he was working at the CGIS or at the Ordinance Enforcement Division, you never received a complaint, true?
I have no idea. No, I haven't.
Okay. And are you aware of any breaches of security from the time that you were employed in this position in January of 2024 to the present?
No, I'm not.
Okay. Did you receive any training in how to determine what misdemeanors might disqualify somebody from accessing CGIS?
I don't believe there's any formal training involved in this process. The standard is the standard.
Well, how did you learn what the standard was?
My assistant chief, who was the one who signed this form, was the one that explained this process to me and went over it with me in great detail.
The misdemeanor review process?
The review process in general.
Okay. So it's fair to say you received on-the-job training?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Did you ever learn where Mr. Young worked?
Not until I didn't know of him again until October.
In October, did you learn where Mr. Young worked?
It was listed on the sponsorship form of the position that he had and was and then the additional permissions he was requesting.
Okay. And what did that indicate to you?
I believe that document that we saw reflected city attorney and the position was IT.
Okay. And did you learn how Mr. Young was getting into that building from January of 2024 till October?
I did not.
Okay. So you don't know if he was accessing it through the public area or through some other area, do you?
Correct.
Okay. Do you know if he received unescorted access to any area of the city attorney's office at any time?
I do not.
Okay. Did you ever opine whether or not this lack of access would affect Mr. Young's ability to do his job?
I did not.
Okay. Do you believe that the city attorney's office, the Ordinance Enforcement Division, from January of 2024 to October of 2024 was less effective?
I'm going to object to relevance.
Yeah, I'm sorry, that isn't what we're here about.
Well, she put in her opening statement that now that it's more effective and more timely. So that's kind of sounds to me like what we were here about.
You can go through the witnesses from the city attorney's office as to what was going on there and what was he doing? Because this gentleman wasn't involved in this case until after the fact. He looked at it again in October of 2024. Now, there are other people who handled this case in 2022 and forward. Those are the people you need to direct questions to if you think they're really that important. And they might be.
Well, we don't have any dispute, sir, to be clear, that he was in charge, based on your definition, he's in charge of the CGIS database from January of 2024 till October.
That's correct.
And we also are clear that my client was not terminated in October. So he's going to be over the supervising and in charge of all of these requests and ultimately in charge of the database from that time period. That's why I focused on that time.
But he didn't do the review in 2022, which is what's in dispute here, what was in dispute. And that's, we need to hear from the city attorney's office as to what he was doing and why the clearance, the lack of clearance, why he did what he did. That's going to be up to the city attorney's office to justify, not this gentleman.
I'll ask a different question. Thank you. Sir, you agree with me that you were in charge of whether or not there were any violations of the CGIS policy with regard to anyone employed by the city attorney's office from January of 2024 until the present, correct?
Yes.
Okay, and that's because it's the Milwaukee Police Department and apparently your office that's ultimately in charge of whether any city of Milwaukee employees violate these policies, correct?
We're in charge of ensuring compliance. We're in charge of ensuring compliance with, again, the CGIS security policy.
Okay, and I'm going to use the word subcontractor for lack of a better word, but ultimately the city attorney's office is subcontracted to the CGIS database through the city of Milwaukee Police Department, correct?
They're required to be in compliance, yes, because of the work they do for us.
Okay, now I want to be clear about something. Does the city of Milwaukee attorney's office in City Hall have access to CGIS?
Do they have access to it?
Yes.
Well, you're talking about the Security Justice Information Services security policy, and they're required to be, we're required to ensure, because of the work they do and the information that they access regarding criminal justice information, that yes, they have to be in compliance with that policy.
But through your office, correct?
Through our office, yes, and the sponsorship forms and all of those requests that they have to make through us, yes.
Okay. I just want to direct your attention to D2. This will be my last set of questions for you, sir.
Yeah, I thought you said this wasn't going to take long.
Well, okay,
Well, sir, you sat there and listed off every occupant of the city, the police administration building, and the municipal court. And you didn't seem to have a problem answering my colleagues' questions.
I'm going to object
Go on.
argumentative.
yeah, just can we move along?
Okay, so you see this document D1 here, sir?
I do, yes.
Okay. And do you see more than one handwriting on this document?
You're going to have to make it bigger. I can't see it.
I'm talking about D1 here. D1.
I see D. I have D2 in front of me.
You said
Okay.
D1,
D1.
attorney? Okay, excuse me.
Yes, I correct myself.
Got a lot of things going on over here.
Yeah, I see it now.
And
Okay.
are we talking about the first two pages?
Yeah, just the first page. And so I just want to direct your attention to where it says Antoine Young and city attorney in blue up there at the top. You see that?
Yes.
And I'm going to direct your just to look at the Y's written in those names there. And then I'm going to direct you slightly down. If you can scroll down one notch, please. Do you see that Mirror Mary Lyles access? Do you see that there?
Yes.
Would you agree with me that that's a different handwriting than the handwriting at the top?
It appears that way. Yes.
Okay. Thank you, sir. I have no more questions for you.
May I have one quick rebuttal?
Yes, but first,
Certainly.
at this time, I'm going to admit the security policies, which are DU1 and DU1A, as exhibit P12 in this matter. Yeah. The process does allow for review and potentially recross. Before we do that, and so that both attorneys can get be aware of where any of the commissioners might be coming from. First, I'm going to ask my fellow commissioners if they have any questions for the witness. Commissioner Clary?
When you were cross-examining, Assistant, Chief Sarno, you were asking him, some questions about whether or not,
No, these are questions for the chief.
oh, for the chief. No, I have no questions for the chief.
I'd be happy to answer any questions you have.
That's fine.
Do any of the commissioners have questions for the witness? Okay,
I
thank you.
do have a brief redirect.
Right.
Oh, thank you.
Now I'm going to go to the two attorneys. We will have brief redirect from you, and then regarding whatever you bring up, Attorney Cross may, Hitchcock Cross may cross-examine the witness in regards to the new testimony of this witness.
Certainly.
So first, please ask your questions.
Thank you, President Bach. AC Sarno, briefly, you indicated that you spoke with DCA Shannon and Mr. Desiato in the fall of 2024. Do you remember giving that testimony?
Yes,
Do you remember opining that it was sometime near October 2024?
yes,
If that conversation took place in November of 2024, would anything else in your testimony change?
no, it would not.
Right. Is it because you, as you sit here today, your recollection of the events in the conversation are solid, but the date specific as to when that occurred is not?
That's correct. I initially said fall, and then I said I believed it was October, but it could be November.
Thank you.
Okay. This witness is excused.
Thank you.
It's almost 11:30.